We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What up, big haircut?
Jesus.
Drill sergeant, looking hot. If you were listening on audio, you don't get to see how good Mike Renner looks with his new haircut. And I complimented the sweater too. The Abercrombie & Fitch sweater is nice.
Abercrombie & Fitch. It's my brand. Not my best haircut. I've had better, but hopefully like in a week or so.
I miss the long hair, man. It was such a good conversation piece. I really liked the long hair.
I hated it. It was a grind. Do you know how long a shower takes when you have hair like past your nipples? It's absurd.
I don't.
It's not good.
Yeah.
That was a big reason. That was probably the only reason.
I'd like we were talking a little bit before we recorded the podcast. Could you make that comment again about the Abercrombie & Fitch and how their style has kind of progressed?
Oh, yeah. So they were super understated now. They used to be like heavily branded, and now it's way more my
Yeah, because you can barely tell that's even Abercrombie & Fitch.
Yeah.
It's a nice color, too. It's like I don't know what kind of color
I got a lot of Abercrombie & Fitch.
Looks good, man. Looks really good. Same with the haircut, Drill Sergeant.
Maybe hop in. Maybe get you some.
I might have to get some. This yellow one is not Abercrombie & Fitch. It's actually puke stained.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a great color.
No, I hate this color. So
That
I
looks
watched
like a
it.
thrift store purchase.
It is a thrift store purchase. But I watched it once, and now it's become this like disgusting like jaundice. You know, like you get yellow as a kid.
Yeah.
It's not a great look. But I have an
jaundice as a
update.
kid?
I didn't have jaundice as a kid, but sometimes kids have jaundice.
Gotcha.
That's a funny story. When I was a kid, I was a C-section. I don't know if you were or not.
Yes.
But there was a point where I told that to people in elementary school, and they made fun of me for it for like a day, and I was taking it to like heart. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like crying.
Why would you tell people you're a C-section?
Well, I don't know. I fucking found it out, and you're like a fourth grade kid, and you're like, yeah, I'll bring it up to my friends, and then everyone made fun of me for it. Like I had control of it. It was rough, dude. I was a C-section kid and bullied for it. Really, really bullied for it for a full day. But a big update on my end. I found a new coffee shop.
Oh.
So my favorite coffee shop in Tennessee is Urbana Cafe. Big shout out. But they close at 5. Sometimes you got to grind after 5. And there's this place that opens at 5 and it closes at 2:30. Highland Coffee House. Espresso's $2. The vibe is immaculate. Everyone dresses just like me. Everyone in there is like a bum. It's fantastic. And yesterday, a good highlight from yesterday. Not a lot of horoscope conversation. At our Urbana Cafe, you get a lot of horoscopes and a lot of, preppy garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Here yesterday, unplugged the headphones. This person, I was like listening to something, and this person. And as soon as I unplug the headphones, I'm not saying I'm an anti-vaxxer. I just don't know if I support it. And I was like, okay, these things got to go right back in. It was a good time yesterday. I love the banter. I love the coffee shop banter.
I would say you're a little voyeuristic with your like, I need to know what's going on in people's lives.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into this here. Arif Hassan does excellent work for The Athletic. Big shout out to him. He puts together, I think, a compilation of 50 plus. Yes, last year was 65 total big boards. I think he's going to continue to add to this thing. 50 plus big boards or from media and analysts around the industry to create this consensus board among.
I was gonna say when it drops, that is your Christmas.
Yeah.
You talk about the consensus board.
I am
Gayle?
a firm believer in wisdom of the crowds. I'm a firm believer in that if you drafted off the consensus board and completely fired all of your scouts and developed players, I think you'd be in a really good spot.
You do better than the Seahawks.
Yes, you do better than a lot of teams. You do better than a lot of teams. I also think even if you don't draft off the consensus board, you should at least look at it to like think about reaches and think about picks. If you're picking Damon Arnett at 19 and on the consensus board, he's 60th, and there hasn't been a reach in the first round bigger than 21 picks on the consensus board in 5 years, that's data you should use. Why not? Front offices don't have this magical book up there just because they're hired by NFL teams. Like all this data is available. I think this is a very valuable piece of it.
I will say there are some caveats in that. One, a lot of these boards are put together without the advent of a lot of film.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And 2, there's like a first mover sort of
100%.
impact that someone who does have a lot of film, us, Dane Brugler, the big dogs in the space. I hate that I call us big dogs.
You just call us the big
But someone that has like
we are chihuahuas, if anything.
Someone that's like respected in the space says something about an opinion about a player that will also affect a lot of opinions about players.
No, there's groupthink bias for sure.
Groupthink bias, yeah.
There's groupthink bias for sure, and I think that's why you can't. I mean, you can't just take it wholeheartedly. Like there's so few people that are willing to take a stand on people. However, it would be a really good process. Here's a take: in your front office, you have X amount of scouts. I don't know how many you have in a front office. Maybe 20, 30. Have them all independently create boards.
Yeah.
And you can't see the other people's boards. You can't. You have to watch every single player. You have to do the same thing that you do and create independent boards. You can't read media. You can't do anything. You have to just like create your own board. And then you put that thing together without that level of bias. That thing could be pretty hot.
Yeah.
I'd be liking that. All right. I'd be liking that. All right. Let's get into this consensus board here. Where I'd like to start is, Arif was awesome and sent me this email of who PFF is highest on, who we are higher on relative consensus, and then who are we lowest on of any board, and then who are we lower on versus consensus. Let's start with highest. These are the players on PFF's big board that we are highest on of any of the 50 boards collected in the athletic consensus board. I'll start with Zach Wilson, who we have second on our board, sixth by the consensus. I still am floored by that we're the only board with him as the number 2 overall player.
I wonder if we're tied with someone, or are we the only one? Because I could see us being tied with a lot of people at second, but that is wild to me that no one else would have him second.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that is that we factor in positional value, and oftentimes, the top 2, top 3 quarterbacks will rank, inside the top 2, top 3 on our board, depending on how they go. The other one here is Christian Barmore, defensive interior from Alabama, 12th on our board, 27th on the consensus. I mean, we are legitimately pushing him into the first round conversation. I know the NFL, from what Jim Nagy had tweeted, is higher on Christian Barmore than maybe the media is. I think we could see him come off the board inside the first 20, inside the first 25 picks. I still like Cleveland as a landing spot, 26. I think they could pull the trigger on Christian Barmore. Then this one's the interesting one. I think this is where I want to spend a lot of the conversation. Walker Little of Stanford, by far the guy we're highest on. He's 26th on our board and 94th on the PFF consensus board, a significant difference there. And then Jamar Johnson, safety of Indiana, also friend of the pod. We had Walker Little and Jamar Johnson on the podcast. 47th on PFF's draft board, Jamar Johnson, 95th on the consensus board. Zach Wilson, I don't know if there's much of a conversation there, but let's start with Christian Barmore. Yeah. Why do you think we're the highest on him, and why are you that confident he's going to be one of the better players in this draft?
I mean, just purely looking at his grading profile, it's excellent. And 88.1 pass rushing grade in 2019, 91.5 pass rushing grade this past year, 2020. That's higher than Javon Kinlaw's best season, Derek Brown's best season. The 2 DTs came out last year. And yeah, he's inconsistent in the run game. I think the comp Steve had for him is Gerald McCoy. I'm not sure if that was one of these draft guide or not. But I think it's very accurate. Like, he is not play with consistent pad level. He is more of a gap shooter in the run game and can get himself out of position. But as pass rusher, you can't really fake that. Like, he can't fake what he did to Notre Dame and Ohio State in the playoffs. And you go back to the quote from Nick Caserio, is that right? The Texans GM?
Yep.
Watch the guys against the best competition. Against the best competition, against guys that are going to be in the NFL, against those offensive lines from Ohio State, Wyatt Davis, Notre Dame, Aaron Banks. He's kicking their ass. Straight up, like other guys who will play in the NFL, he's kicking their ass to a degree that no other defensive tackle, defensive lineman, edge rusher came close to doing this past year. So, yeah, I mean, that's why he's 12th on our board. You just feel very good about this guy as a pass rusher, and only a redshirt sophomore coming out.
What are the reasons that Christian Barmore doesn't pan out in the NFL? If you had to have a crystal ball and say, okay, he doesn't end up being this first round caliber player, what are some of the reservations or the cons you have with Christian Barmore?
Yeah, I mean, the inconsistency. It's viable on his tape. Like against Florida, didn't get a single pressure in that game, SC championship game. He has a tendency to play high, but I feel very confident. Again, you feel confident when you see a guy dominate to that level that he did with good physical tools. Like he went sub 5 second in the 40 at 310 pounds. That's pretty damn good. So, yeah.
All right, let's now go ahead and jump to Walker Little, offensive tackle Stanford. You have him as the 26th ranked player on PFF's draft board, 94th on the consensus. Walker Little is the offensive tackle, former 5-star, big name coming out of Cali, goes to Stanford, only has one full season, and then in 2019, I think suffers an injury in week 1, doesn't play the rest of that season, and then opts out of the 2020 campaign. When I talked to him on the podcast, he said, I haven't seen a college pass rusher since 2019. He is not the biggest con with Walker Little, and I think what's driving this 94th ranking, in my opinion, is not anything about his ability. but it's the injury history and obviously just the lack of reps. Like, you have not seen the kid play. He has not played in a long time. He is a question mark more than he is an exclamation point. However, independent of what he has done, I think you've learned, you talked about this, 10, 20, 30 podcasts ago. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean he can't do it.
Yeah.
Walker Little has all the athletic tools. I know you've had a lot of conversations as well with Paul Alexander, who's training him right now and talks about him highly.
It's also just recognizing where his tape was on his developmental curve. And over his last 7 games, he was the highest graded pass protector in all of college football. Over that span, highest graded pass protector in all of college football. And recognizing where that was, though, compared to other tackles in this draft class. Tevin Jenkins wasn't even a starter the last time, at the age the last time we saw Walker Little play. Tevin Jenkins wasn't even a starter for Oklahoma State. So all 3 years of Tevin Jenkins, of like his developmental curve, we just didn't get to see from Walker Little. Like, I tweeted out yesterday how many snaps we've seen from all the top offensive tackles since they turned 20 years old. 72 from Walker Little. Every other top tackle besides Slater and Sewell are over 1,500 snaps. Over 3 seasons from all these other top tackles we got to see since they turned 20 years old. You didn't get to see it from Walker Little. Now, not everyone develops at the same pace, but when you are the level of physical tools that he has, 7'4", 4'3", cone, 4'5'9" shuttle, like very athletic at 6'7", 313 pounds, has the arm length, really has all the physical tools you could possibly want for the position. At that point, I'm going to bet on the guy who has that and was already making those strides in a big, big way at Stanford. We just, again, didn't get to see that next level. And so, yeah, maybe he's not day one impact tackle. Not a lot are. That's a rare position to have a guy come in and step in and be ready. But I think his developmental curve is only sort of at the low point. We're going to see a lot better football from him in the future, especially since, like, it's not like he's not putting in the work. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, I'm kind of speaking for you here, but you wouldn't take Walker Little, say you are a GM and you are drafting, say where the Steelers are at 24 or Chiefs are at 31, knowing, in my opinion, knowing that he's 94th on the consensus, you'd probably be smart enough to know that you could probably take him on day 2. Or at least wait for him on day 2. I think this would be a situation where if you do take him in the first round, say there is a team that has a similar board as you, you're being overconfident in your evaluation. You're being overconfident in Walker Little, unless you're hearing from sources around the league that he's also viewed highly. I don't know.
He's been a first round mock draft, so I don't know. I'd be more than willing to take if I'm the Packers, if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm one of the teams at the bottom of round 1
really?
That needs to tackle. Yeah.
You're pounding the table then. That's a pound the table situation. I like it. I like it. Stick to your guns. All right. Jamar Johnson, safety, Indiana, 47th ranked. He was a late riser on PFF's draft board, a guy that you spoke highly about. We had the safety podcast on Monday. You should listen to that. We talk about Jamar Johnson in detail, but the biggest highlights for him, playmaker. The testing wasn't great. I think that's going to drive some of this 95th ranking for sure. But what you saw on film, I mean, he's one of the better playmaking safeties in this draft.
And it's not just like you go to Andre Sisco's tape and he's taking chances at stuff. Jamar Johnson's tape is 7 picks, 6 pass breakups in a very limited sample size. Literally like 7 picks, 6 pass breakups in about 1 season's worth of snaps, 406 coverage snaps in his career. And they're not, like I said, they're not him just like guessing. Let me go get opposition, make a play. It's him reading it. And the play I love was I think it was a pick against Michigan on the sideline on a go route where he's coming from the middle of the field, and just a lot of guys are going to track that ball and go for a hit, maybe be hesitant in it, not necessarily find it. He is on the ball the entire time. And I think that's the biggest thing you see on tape is his ability to locate the football is just elite. His angles to the ball are as good as it gets. There's no hesitation in his game. And so, yeah, he didn't test out exceptionally athletically, but like on tape, you see it. Like you see those plays that not just you make them or you don't. Not a lot of guys in this class are capable of even making those plays.
I think it'd also be very difficult to find as good of tape at safety from Jamar Johnson anywhere after the first 50 picks. Like, I mean, you're taking chances on guys that have bad tape, that have maybe good athleticism, inconsistent tape. Jamar Johnson, obviously the inconsistency comes from the tackling ability, but in coverage, you said as consistent as it can get.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and jump now. Do you want to go to the guys we're lowest on and then go back to the highest, or do you want to just keep going high?
Let's get high.
All right, let's get high. I'm going to read these in groups here. There's a handful of players that I want to bring up. All of these players are ranked inside PFF's top 100, but lower ranked compared to the consensus board. Starting with Greg Newsome, cornerback Northwestern. This is not that, higher ranked, sorry. This is not that significant. Greg Newsome, cornerback Northwestern, 20th versus 26th. Not a massive jump. Elijah Moore, though. Let's start here. Elijah Moore, wide receiver, Ole Miss. 22nd on PFF's draft board, 35th on the consensus board. How much is it that people think he's a slot only that's driving that? I honestly think it's a lot.
It's a lot. Sam was telling me to move him down. Sam
Really?
Monson said he thinks he's slot only. I am pounding the table that Elijah Moore, of any of the smaller guys in this draft class, and not even any of the smaller guys, any of the guys that were slot majority guys, the Jalen Dardens, the Tutu Atwells, Rondale Moore. I didn't throw Kadarius Toney into that mix. And even though Kadarius Toney has better size to profile on the outside, I think Elijah Moore can play outside receiver better than any of those guys. That's how talented he is as a route runner. That's how talented his releases were against J.C. Horn in the limited amount of sample size we saw. And that's just the level of athlete it takes when you're undersized. He is that. All around athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it.
If Lane Kiffin didn't want him
ball
to,
skills are there. Is the other biggest thing. Is like not a lot of guys can track down the field through contact. He did and could and does. So yeah,
I'm 100% with you. He's my favorite receiver after Rashad Bateman, after the first 4 on PFF's draft board. I will say, if Lane Kiffin didn't want him to compete for most receiving yards in the country, he would have played him on the outside. But playing him in the slot and having those high leverage situations, he was feeding the kid. He was able to feed the kid similar to how he fed Amari Cooper at Alabama. And you see time and time again in the college level and in the NFL, teams putting their best receivers in the slot. I was talking to, I think, Terrace Marshall about this. It's like, or it might have been one of the slot quarterback prospects. Can't remember. I talked to so many players, dude. Yeah. Speaking of the consensus board, I talked to 53 players in the top 125 on the consensus board. That's a shitload of players. I start to lose track. I recently had a conversation with Baron Browning, by the way. That guy is stern. Couldn't get that guy to crack a joke to save my life. It was tough. He hated me. I don't know what it was, but it was a good interview regardless.
Where we ranked him on our board.
We got through it. Maybe it is because we're actually lower on him than the consensus. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is Elijah Moore, man, I think this is a lot of development from you as an analyst, in my opinion. Elijah Moore, I feel like, versus Justin Jefferson from a snap percentage playing a ton of the slot, but you are actively looking for Elijah Moore's talent, his traits, and what he can do on the limited reps he did play on the outside. I think you're seeing it, which is awesome. All right, let's go ahead and jump now to Elijah Molden. 2 Elijahs here. We have him 35th on our board versus 57th on the consensus board. My take is that other boards don't really factor in how valuable slot is. Yeah, again.
And also, I think he can play safety. He did play safety one game this past year, but he has been a slot defender. But and he's not. And the other thing is, he's not just an exceptional coverage defender, which he is. Very physical in the running game. Run defense grades of 81.0 and 77.2 the past 2 years. That's very, very good for a cornerback. He sticks his nose in it. Good tackler. The Buda Baker comp's low hanging fruit, but that's what this guy can be at that size. He's just a damn good football player all around. It's the guy I want on my team, and tested out pretty well, actually. 36.5-inch vertical, 10.5 broad jump. That's explosive numbers, especially that broad jump. Usually you don't see smaller guys having good broads at 5'9".
All right, next guy here, Aleem McNeil, longtime PFF favorite, NC State defensive tackle, guy who sent us videos of him hitting nukes in high school playing baseball. 54th ranked on PFF's board, 77th ranked on the consensus board. It's always interesting when you see we're higher on lower positional value players, because we're higher on Aleem McNeil, 54 versus 77. We're also higher on Khalil Herbert, who this is a pound the table type of guy. Khalil Herbert, 91st versus 132nd. And a lot of people do not have Khalil Herbert ahead of Trey Sermon like we do. And I think there's some opportunity to have some conversation there. Start with Aleem McNeil, and then let's get to Khalil Herbert as well.
So McNeil, we've talked about this guy a ton. Highest run defense grade in the country last year. Only a junior coming out. Good length. Massive dude. As pro day was 317. He said he played the 340 last year. At 317, he had over a 30-inch vertical. Still 9 foot broad. He's an explosive cat. And no one moved this guy last year. Now, is he a work in progress as a pass rusher? Hell yeah. But I think he has an excuse with, going to a place where you're not developing a ton of interior pass rushers at NC State, to where, and obviously a true junior coming out, that this guy can get there. And he doesn't, you don't need much when you're as explosive as he is. He had a 1.6810 split, which put in context, that's faster than what Chris Jones had coming out. So he gets off the ball, this guy. Only a matter of time, in my opinion.
I think of any of the defensive tackles I'm willing to bet on day 2, he's my favorite. Easily my favorite. Still one of the youngest players in this draft. And recruited by all the blue bloods, but wanted to stay in Raleigh, North Carolina. I do think that
the blue blood, not sequitur, but the blue blood conversation when I ranked him,
everyone
I didn't put in
you.
Oregon. I will include Oregon.
Really?
Mea culpa. Oregon deserved to be there. That's on me. But someone wrote a whole review on the podcast trying to sway me, and I've been swayed. Oregon belongs there.
Wow,
that's on me.
Interesting. I think Oregon belongs there purely off uniform combinations.
Yeah, I think part of being a blue blood is also like investment in the program.
Yes,
and they obviously have the investment.
Money.
Yeah,
I agree.
Phil
with that.
Knight took care of that.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%. All right, I wanted you to talk Khalil Herbert now. Why? So Khalil Herbert over Trey Sermon. Why?
Yeah, they're both old. It's not like either of them are spring chickens coming out. They're both seniors or 4th-year guys. Actually, Herbert might be a 5th-year guy coming out. But Herbert's just the body type I prefer. In the squatty, 5'9", 215, and has, in my opinion, better speed. I mean, tested out with better speed as well. And you saw him this past year. Just the only thing was we didn't get to see a ton of them. Only 155 carries this past year was really the only season they turned it on, because at Kansas, well, his first 3 years there, he was not getting much in the way of run blocking, but he is a one-cut, upfield, make one guy miss runner. Like he to me is, like I said, a top 5 running back in this class. I just think I'm actually surprised not as many people are high on him.
Could it be he has a web foot?
Could be.
It's part of it. It's part of it. It has to be part of the conversation. All right. Handful more players that were higher on versus consensus, and then we'll get to the lower side of this. Let's kind of speed through these. Couple receivers. K. Johnson, 77 versus 134. I mean, I think a lot of that is just not having tape at South Dakota State. Let's just call it what it is. You know, how many of these consensus sports have tape at South Dakota State?
Probably not a lot.
And I think, you know, the Senior Bowl was obviously driving a lot of this too. You know, seeing what he did against like legit Power 5 competition.
Highest graded guy at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, highest graded guy at the Senior Bowl. Then you have Jalen Darden, 79th versus 137th. And then Josh Palmer, he's your guy. I know Josh Palmer's your guy, but the more after that interview I had with him, I went back and watched his tape versus Patrick Surtain. I'm starting to like him a lot too. I kind of want to be one of my guys as well. I'm a big fan of him on day 3. If he falls to day 3, it'd be absolute malpractice. I do think that 4th round, 5th round, you were getting one of the few legitimate receivers you can draft on day 3 that can start on the outside early. Like
yes,
really legitimately early.
Outside production. He can do that. And he's got that size profile. We'll talk about size of the receiver position a lot. That wins at the NFL. 6'1", 210 pounds, 4'5", 240, sub 7'3" cone. That's a winning combination. When you are big, somewhat fast. You don't have to be Superman to catch 100 balls as a wide receiver. You can run the 4.5s, but getting the 4.6s you're concerning. But 4.52 is more than fast enough, especially when you're that size. And then the cone, the ability to turn. This guy is a violent route runner. He was just stuck on the outside. I mean, I make the Terry McLaurin comp with him because he's stuck in a role that was just never going to produce. You put Calvin Johnson in his fucking prime there, he's not going to get targets in that offense. Just with Jarek Guarantano throwing ducks 20 yards when anytime anyone goes vertical. Mm-hmm. And that's like the problem. Not even 500 yards in a season, but it's not all his fault. A lot of that was just the role he's put in there. And then he goes to Senior Bowl and looked fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Some quick comments on K. Johnson and Jalen Darden.
Oh, so K. Johnson, Jalen Darden. I think you hit the nail on the head with Johnson. Just not a lot of people are going to see South Dakota State tape, especially when you got to go back to 2019 to see him because they didn't have a season this past year. Jalen Darden, it's just kind of I'm really surprised 137th on the consensus board because he seemed like everybody's guy.
Yeah.
And he might be a gadget player, but that's about as good as a gadget player as you're going to get. You talk about the 79th pick somewhere in the mid of the 3rd round. I'll take that all day, every day. Something
interesting about Jalen Darden, he's 137th on the consensus board, and Josh Palmer is 159th. I would very confidently take Palmer over Darden. Very confidently. I like Palmer a lot more than I do like Darden on day 2.
Yeah, it's also like those are different positions.
No, I know. Yeah. I absolutely. But I'm saying things. I think what's interesting is when you get to the day 2, day 3 types of receiver. People talk about even in the first round, you're looking for flavors of ice cream. What do you want at receiver? There's a handful of guys that can do different things. When you get to day 2 and day 3, they're like legit. It's like sorbet versus fucking cream based over here.
Yeah.
Like it is a lot different. The skill sets get a lot more unique or niche as you get Jalen Darden.
Unique.
Huh?
Can't modify unique.
Unique, niche, eat. I don't know what I was going to say, something stupid there. Regardless, I think the flavors get a little bit more drastic or a little bit more. I don't know, man. I don't know. Now I'm trying to modify unique. I'm going to kill. I don't know what to do. All right. Let's go ahead and now jump to the last 2 people we're higher on versus consensus. 2 cornerbacks. Thomas Graham Jr. of Oregon at 76 versus 145. And then you have Trey Brown, quarterback of Oklahoma, your guy, 98th versus 166.
At Graham, I'm surprised. 145th. One, he looked really good at Senior Bowl, too. I think opt-out guys, people just seemingly, there's a lot of guys that I feel like they're lower on the consensus board, at least, just being hesitant where it's like, I feel like your best years, like you're missing out. I think I had this take on one of the mailbags that one, these guys are probably going to get underrated because of it, but like you didn't get to see the next step. Not a lot of guys get worse throughout the college career. And not a lot of guys come back for that last year and look like Marvin Wilson. The Derek Browns of the world are far more prevalent where you continue to improve throughout your college career. And with Graham, we just didn't see it this past year because he opted out, obviously, but was very good the 2 years prior. 82.9 coverage grade, 2019. Been starting since his true freshman year at Oregon. I don't know, I'm surprised here. It's 15 pass breakups in 2018. Really good ball production, really patient corner, physical, a lot of press coverage over the course of his career at Oregon. I don't know. I just think he doesn't necessarily have a ton of high-end traits, but not a bad athlete by any means. Went sub 4.5 at his pro day. So
I like Trey Brown a lot too. I mean, in addition, I hate to say this again, but the interview was fantastic. Very smart player. He reminded me of how. So I ask every single player of all the. I think I talked to 69 guys. Nice. I talked 69 guys total. 53 in the athletic consensus board, top 125. Of all the guys that I talk to, I always ask them, what their film study habits are in the week of a game and then in the offseason. Trey Brown's was the most detailed answer of any cornerback I talked to. Yeah. That includes Patrick Surtain and other top guys. His was the most detailed, and his approach reminded me so much of how, because I listened to a lot of the Chris Collinsworth podcast with Richard Sherman. His approach reminded me so much of how Richard Sherman talks about how he gets advantages by not being a 4-4-4-3 type of guy. And I brought that up to him. I mean, it's when you have guys that are that dedicated, because another question I ask these players too, and I hate to harp on the interviews a ton. I know you bring them up and laugh at them, but another question I ask them is your why or your motivation. And what I find interesting is the players that first bring up their love for the game and their dedication to football and how much they want to be great, is there's a high correlation between that answer and what they do in the film room and the effort they put in the film room versus a lot of people bring up family and these different things, which motivation is motivation. But when you have this intrinsic motivation to be the best, and then you see that translate into when no one's watching, which is in film study, in preparation, these types of things, I do think it translates to the NFL. People talk about what translates to the NFL, like height, athleticism, these different things. Work habits and effort translates pretty quickly. It's the reason high motor gets not logged on things. High motor you can see on tape, but there's high motor in the practice week as well.
Yeah, no Isaiah Wilson concerns here with Trey Brown.
That's fair. I don't think I won't name players that I got Isaiah Wilson vibes from, but they're
power rank the biggest Isaiah Wilson vibes.
I can't do it. I'm not doing that. All right, let's go.
Who's most likely to be on a hood of a car in a strip mall somewhere in Florida?
Okay, I have a name
within the next year.
All right, I'll give you a name. Mike Quinn.
Maybe. I would love to go to Florida and be on the hood of a car throwing money after the draft is over.
All right.
That'd be a nice little vacation.
Let's go ahead and jump
But Trey Brown, to add to that, he's 5'9". That's kind of the thing.
Oh, of course.
But you see the what you kind of all just touched on there. He reminds me of a smaller version of Jalen Johnson last year.
Ooh.
Where Jalen Johnson wanted to kick the dude's ass across from him, and he wanted to, you saw the way he saw the game was very high level. Trey Brown, very similar. You're not making picks in these one-on-ones without that kind of ability.
Oh my gosh, the timeline today is going to suck.
What just happened?
Oh my, Devontae Smith weighed in at 6 foot flat, 166.
He's shrinking?
6 foot flat, 166. The
Where
timeline,
why'd he,
Albert Breer just said that. The NFL team's got athletic testing numbers from Indy Medical Combine. He weighed in at the combine 6 foot flat, 166.
Dude, he's getting smaller. 166 is tiny. That's wild.
I might have to tweet out, I'm 5'9", 166. I mean, that's I'm 3 inches shorter and the same weight as Devontae Smith.
Are you 166? Thought you were getting down to 160.
Well, no, I'm like 160, but I mean, I want to kind of have the same weight. But I guess that's malpractice.
You want to lie?
Yeah, I want to lie. I guess that's true. Damn it. How much do you weigh?
I told you, I'm Rashad Bateman. I'm 6 foot 185.
Damn it. So you're bigger than Devontae Smith?
Yeah.
Your calves are
and
disgusting.
People clown my legs. My calves, okay. People clown my legs. Like, I don't do leg day. I train for explosiveness. Should I do the legs again? I train to jump higher. And that's why my legs aren't like the biggest. Who wants big fucking legs? You look like a hardo. That's skinny though.
Dude, that's crazy. I love that he just like showed up to that knowing he was going to jump on a scale and still was like, I don't even know if he drank water that day. Like that's
I wonder if he's like cutting just to make it a joke at this
fair
point.
enough.
No, I mean,
dude.
you're not. But.
Like, so does he have to weigh in? Because that seems like a poor idea. Like, it seems like
well, I mean, he went to
like,
the medical combine, and I think you have to weigh in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way they weren't going to put you on a scale, right?
Yeah, it's like when you go to the doctor's office and they prop you up.
Because he had the finger. He said the finger's healing great. Maybe with the finger, though, he wasn't able to eat. He couldn't put food in his mouth. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to harp on a dude's weight. I'm sorry. That is crazy, though. 166 is light as fuck. That is crazy. All right. What did you say was a good tweet? Do I do the food take?
The food take, yeah. Maybe he couldn't eat with the broken finger.
All right. I might send it. All right. Here's players we're lowest on. The absolute lowest on. Only 2 of all the 50 boards in the consensus board. Najee Harris of Alabama. I'll tell you right now, I work with the social team constantly, content director here at PFF. We get so much heat when we tweet out running back rankings because Najee Harris isn't number 1. 66th on PFF's board, 25th on the consensus. I'll tell you right now, you won't see a running back ranked inside the top 30 on a PFF board for as long as you're working here. I mean, I don't know ever again. Like that's just a fact. Like the running backs.
They better be a wide receiver.
Yeah, they better be different, which rarely they are. And then the other one's a running back as well. It's Chuba Hubbard of Oklahoma State, 220th versus 129th. A lot of people. So what? Najee Harris. I think the only reason Najee Harris is that low is the running back value, right? You still view like Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, and Najee Harris all in this similar tier. Yeah. So Chuba Hubbard, is it Chuba or Chuba? Chuba? Like Tuba? All right, Chuba Hubbard, Oklahoma State. A lot of the conversation I think is around what his 2020 season looked like versus what his 2019 season looked like. Because in 2019 it was awesome, and then 2020 it kind of just fell off a little bit.
It still wasn't super high on him at 2019, and then you have injuries. Massive workload that he's on, and he's just a little on the smaller end for the position and not a great athlete. Like 7.28 3-cone, pretty gross for a running back that you're supposed to cut. So I'm just not, and never did much in the receiving game at Oklahoma State either. So again, we're gonna be lower on a lot of running backs. That's just one that's like I don't see the super high end you're getting. Although there are not a lot of running backs ranked ahead of him is the other thing. So.
Dude, a lot of these other weights are coming out and they're blowing me away. Louisville, Tutu Atwell came in at lighter, 5'8", 149.
What the fuck? I'm
legitimately bigger than Tutu Atwell. That's sad. You don't want me on the football field, guys. You don't. And then Zaven Collins came in at 6'4", 270. Up 11 pounds since his pro day. Dude's housing food. How much are these weights a joke? If they can fluctuate this much, I mean, I don't know. And then Zach Wilson, 6'2", 210, which is really good. I mean, a lot of people thought that he would come down after, like come down bag. Yeah. And then Jalen Twyman up to 319 at 6'1". First team all beef.
Why is he getting bigger?
It's a hard, that's tough.
That guy just got addicted to the weight room in the year off. He's that guy who just in college just starts getting massive, and you're like, God, calm down, dude. That's Jalen Twyman right now.
Man, I have a tweet brewing. I'm gonna work on it. But this is wild. Tutu Atwell's 5'8", 149, and Devontae Smith is 6 foot flat, 166, and I'm right in between them. I'm gonna put myself in there. All right, let's get back to. Sorry, the weight's throwing me off, dude. Albert Breer's out here dropping bombs. Let's get to the players that we're relatively low on. Can move kind of quickly through these, especially with some of the lower valued positions. You're gonna see a lot of running backs, interior offensive line, DTs, that kind of stuff. But Travis Etienne of Clemson, 66th versus 31st. Jalen Mayfield of Michigan. This one's interesting. Let's start here. Jalen Mayfield of Michigan, 144th on PFF's draft board versus 51st on the consensus board. Why are people in love with Jalen Mayfield? And I mean, that's nearly 100 spots lower on PFF's board.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Tested out really poorly athletically. Not great in pass protection whatsoever at any point over the course of Michigan's career. Got some highlight reel blocks, but that's kind of it on his tape. He's not consistent. He's a young guy coming out, though. Give him that. Didn't get to necessarily see him develop a ton, but with our line of scrimmage stuff, there's like a threshold. You got to, I don't care what your physical tools are, it's still like skill matters. And when you have a 72.3 run blocking grade, 75.5 pass blocking grade, those are this past season on, obviously it was only 2 games, but even the year prior, they were worse, those grades. So that's why.
All righty. I think that's what I'm interested in is that, will he play guard in the NFL? Do you think people want to try him at tackle?
I bet he plays guard.
Okay.
I think the NFL sees him at guard.
All right. Another guy that I think PFF's been markedly lower on, not the lowest apparently, but Jalen Mayfield, offensive line, or not Jalen Mayfield, Davian Nixon, defensive tackle, Iowa, 114th versus 58th on PFF's draft board. You just don't see it with Nixon.
Mm-hmm. And so we talked about Barmore beating up good competition and that being valuable. Davion Nixon disappeared against good competition. His grade against Wisconsin, offensive line this past year, 53.7 pass rushing grade, 59.2 run defense grade, not a single pressure. His grade against Northwestern, the one game that he played well, 79.0 pass rushing grade, 77.7 run defense grade. Like, he looked great in that game. Northwestern's offensive line is not going to send any of those guys in the interior to the NFL. That's just a flat out fact. So when a guy's beating up, and he's got very good physical tools, over 35-inch arms, a good get off. He is a powerful dude. But again, if it's not happening against the better competition, if you really can only beat up the guys who can't match you physically, that's concerning about how you're going to translate to the league.
Do you think, and I hate to derail this conversation, I think there's some conversation now around Zaven Collins potentially playing defensive end. Like, is he going to get up to 270 to play along the defensive line?
10 pounds when you weigh that much is nothing.
Really?
That's really not much. He's fine.
You're just stacking on. Probably, I mean, India has some really nice steakhouses that obviously Tutu Atwell's never fucking seen. I mean, Devontae Smith couldn't even get in, probably. I think he maybe just had a nice night at St. Elmo's.
I mean, he probably just not caring. Like in the off season, you eat more to gain muscle.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
It's probably not even an issue.
All right. Next couple guys on this list. Let's go over Tyson Campbell, cornerback of Georgia, 108th on PFF's board. Kind of a late faller. Didn't like his testing. Goes to 108th on PFF's draft board versus 60th on the consensus board.
Yeah, and again, the testing's very bad. Like, was very bad considering what you thought he was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thought he was going to be an all-around athlete, and when he's really not, because again, you don't see those Georgia guys doing a ton outside of when they're attached to receivers. And when you go 7-1-5-3 cone and 4-4-5 shuttle for a cornerback, those are just not good numbers whatsoever. And the thing was, he was a project all along. Tape was never exceptional. 9 career pass breakups in 2.5 seasons as a starter. The ball production was not good, flat out. Remember we talked to Dane Brugler. That was one of the things he said. Ball production. Who are the guys getting their hands on footballs? That is sticky from college to pro. If you're not getting your hands on footballs, I don't see what he's then going to be. What's his sort of trait that you're going to hang your hat on in the NFL? Yeah,
no, I think I do think that Tyson Campbell, what's interesting is that how do we come out of this with Eric Stokes kind of coming out, more? I thought Tyson Campbell would be, the consensus better Georgia cornerback of the two. But Tyson Campbell ends up falling down to 108th. A couple more players here we'll talk on. I'm only going to bring up the players that are ranked inside the top 100 on the Athletics consensus board and not in the top 100 on ours that we're lower on. A few more, 2 offensive linemen. Josh Myers, center, Ohio State. A guy that a lot of people on Twitter are big fans of as well. And Spencer Brown, offensive tackle, Northern Iowa, who is a project, a pool of Play-Doh in a lot of ways, but kind of, has some interesting athleticism and interesting traits.
I don't get the Josh Myers hype at all. I'm just going to flat out say it. The guy does not sustain blocks well. Flat out. That's a big thing at center. Center, of all the positions in the NFL, the least trait-based physically in terms of what translates to the NFL. It's the most skill-based. This guy's like the skill he's shown on tape at Ohio State. Got that 11 pressures this past year in like a half season. 15 pressures the year before that. He had a 65.4 overall grade this past year. You got a college competition like Barmore eating the student's lunch in the national title game. That's concerning again when it's like that's a skilled position. So yeah, we're just lower, and again, not a super valuable interior offensive line, so we're going to be lower on that guy.
And how about Spencer Brown?
Spencer Brown was flat out not. He's pure athletic traits. Unreal. Maybe the most athletic offensive tackle ever. Again, it's a skill position. He was not good, even at Northern Iowa. At Northern Iowa, a 67.5 pass blocking grade against FCS competition. A 60.7 run blocking grade. Graded his whole season in 2019. That's it's not good. Like that's physical tools for days. Yeah, probably going to be underdeveloped at a place like Northern Iowa, but that's not like a bad FCS program by any means. Like he's getting coached up. It's not like this is a Jordan Mailata situation where the guy just doesn't know football at all. He's played for a while, just hasn't played well.
Two more here, and then we'll jump to the interviews. Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver, Western Michigan. A lot of people liked him after the Senior Bowl. He's got speed, one of the older wide receiver prospects in this class. He's ranked 73rd on the athletic consensus board, but just 164th on PFF's draft board.
This one's more my type of receiver. I am just going to be lower on guys with questionable ball skills. And he flat out has questionable ball skills. 16 drops on 138 catchable in his career. Not great production. Obviously, never more than 786 yards this past season. I guess this past season was shortened. He was producing this past season, but that was his fifth year of college. He's 24 years old, I believe. Undersized. Another guy who's like more of a slot mold type, 5'9", 190. And just with questionable ball skills, I don't like guys with speed and questionable ball skills. It's a lot of big drops in high leverage situations. It's not where I want my drops. So, and even when he does catch the ball, even when he's not, 16 drops on 138 catchable, a lot of body catches. Not going to be a contested catch guy. Like, this is very different than an Elijah Moore, who great ball skills, a lot of contested catches on state, playing through contact. Eskridge, you're kind of just banking on the speed being that dominant, and that I think we've seen again and again. Speed gets you in the door, doesn't make you a great receiver necessarily.
Last one here, Jay Tufele, defensive tackle, USC. I thought we'd be closer to the consensus here, but 136th on PFF's draft board versus 80th on the consensus board. Big fans, obviously majority big fans of Jay Tufele. That's high ranking for Tufele. Yeah,
Tufele, just very inconsistent on tape. He is a bull in a china shop. Sadly, I wish I liked him after his sophomore year back in 2018. I was like, what could this guy be? But then really didn't take a meaningful next step in 2019. And then obviously we didn't get to see 2020. So 73.3 overall grade back in 2019. And he's got some nice physical tools. Like, he's got the length of the position, but just the balance issues are too, he sheds a block and is like on his face far too often for my liking. So that's why 136, and again, DT value, 136 is playing a lot into that as well.
Alrighty, that's going to do it. The consensus board, Christmas morning for AG. We get it done. I like it. Big fan of it. Definitely going to be looking at that as people make picks in the first round. I'm always interested in the biggest reaches of the first round via the athletic consensus board. Some of them last year, Jordan Brooks, Seattle Seahawks, Damon Arnett, Las Vegas Raiders, and you know who? Isaiah Wilson. Biggest reach of the first round, Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying go at it as your Bible, but I think it's another piece of data, another piece of information, just kind of have in the back of your mind when you're taking players in the first round. That's for damn sure. All right. Well, let's go ahead and now jump to interviews with Notre Dame's Tommy Tremble and then USC wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now joining the 2-4 Drafts podcast is former Notre Dame tight end Tommy Tremble. Big fan of your work, man. My podcast co-host. He's not on the interview today. Mike Renner, also a Golden Domer. Big fan of yours. It's great to have you on the show, man.
Yes, sir. It's great to be here. Thank you, guys.
Of course, man. Let's go ahead and start with, we talked a little bit before we started recording about your dad, Greg Tremble, played for safety for Georgia from 1990 to 1993. You had offers from Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, UCLA coming out, ultimately make that decision to go to Notre Dame. Walk me through that decision and what ultimately led you to the Fighting Irish.
Mm-hmm. So, growing up, I said before, I was a diehard Georgia fan, went to every single spring game since I was 4 years old. Thought I was going to go there the day I was born to even right before I committed to Notre Dame. But when really thinking about it and talking to my family, Notre Dame offered a lot of things other places couldn't. They offered elite education and elite football at the same time. And I really felt comfortable being with people who are other players that want to excel in both on and off the field. It was an environment I really felt comfortable really putting myself in there, and I'm glad I made that choice.
Something I'd like to talk about too is, man, your biggest strength from what I saw at Notre Dame and PFF's draft guide is blocking. We see you as one of the better run blocking tight ends, pass blocking tight ends in this class. Where does that come from? Is that something that you feel like is a big strength in your game? Is that something that separates you in this class?
Mm-hmm. I think that was something this past offseason. A lot of people were saying I was just a receiving tight end, and I wanted to prove them wrong to being I can do everything on the field. And so I worked really hard this offseason to try to perfect that craft. And through help of our new tight end coach, Coach Minotti, and my old coach, Coach Long, kind of finding up those smaller details, it really helped me kind of excel at that position. And so I was really grateful to have a great really line of people around me to support me during that.
That's awesome, man. And you have some wild highlight blocks too, man. If everyone hasn't watched the Tommy Tremble highlight reel of the blocking stuff, it's awesome to see. Are there any tight ends in the NFL that you watch a ton of, that you kind of like to pattern your game after, whether that be as blockers or as pass catchers in the NFL?
Mm-hmm. Really, someone I've watched my entire life and I tried to emulate was how George Kittle, how violent he was at the point of attack, where he put his head, helmet, hands inside, like everything he did, he drove guys into the ground and loved doing it. And that's the same thing I love to do. I mean, like you said before, moving one man against his will is the best feeling. You know what I mean? And so I felt the same, and that's the guy I really tried to emulate my play style after.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. In the meetings you've had with teams so far, what has been their feedback on your game and potentially their feedback on where they want to play you in the NFL? I know Mike and I have talked about on the podcast potentially, you have obviously the inline capabilities, but there's some fullback to your game too, man. If people want to use you similarly to how the San Francisco 49ers have used Kyle Juszczyk in a lot of ways, or maybe how others have used fullback type of tight ends, what have teams said about that role for you in the NFL?
Mm-hmm. So early on, guys were saying I was in line, could play that fullback position because that was something Notre Dame gave me the opportunity to. But after a lot of teams attended my pro day and saw what I could do receiving-wise, they saw me as a guy that I could be put all over the field, out wide, in the slot, from the wing, even running routes from the backfield. They saw all of that kind of stuff. And so from now on, it's really been talking about how versatile I can be all over the field.
Yeah, I definitely think that the versatility, man, at the position is going to be is really what's going to pan out in the NFL for you. I'd love to go back to your time at Notre Dame, and specifically in a given game week or a given practice week. What goes on film for you? What do you look for from a keys or tendencies perspective on film as you're preparing for a certain defense or a certain opponent?
Mm-hmm. So really, that all starts day after the game. After we finish one opponent, we're focused on the next one day after, And the main thing when I'm looking at it, or if I'm looking at it with my line or the tight ends, is we're seeing how the guys we're going against, either the front four or the linebacking core too, we want to see how they play. If they're guys who like to set the edge, if they're guys who like to bounce around blocks, like for DNs, we see if they're power players, strength players, length players or speed players. We see what they kind of do. And at Notre Dame, you get the opportunity to go against all those type of guys throughout the week in practice. And so really going over that and being in sound with our O-line, blocking scheme-wise, was something that really helped us succeed at Notre Dame and really excel at our run game during that time there.
Something else I wanted to ask you, and kind of more logistical. I know you weighed in at your pro day, 6'3", 241. Is that the weight you played at this past season for Notre Dame? And is there a goal weight you have in mind this offseason, or have teams kind of asked you to bulk up or slim down at all?
Mm-hmm. So really at my pro day, I was just a lot lighter than I was the entire time I was here. Like at the medical combine I had last week, I ended up weighing at 248. And beginning of the season last year, I was 251. And so it wasn't anything that coaches want me at a comfortable weight. I think I'm a guy who plays around 246, 247. That's the weight I really started the year out as. And by the end of the season, I was probably around 240 around then. But I'm really comfortable around that kind of 245 range.
You've been really great, Tommy. I really appreciate the time. I like to finish with this one. I asked all the players I talked to kind of, what their motivation or their why is as they kind of go to enter the NFL and make the sacrifices you need to make to play college football and then pursue a career in the NFL. What is that why or that motivation for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I always have to say it's in my blood. I mean, my dad played in the NFL. My great-grandpa played in the NFL. My grandpa played in the NFL. All my uncles played D1 football. It's something I grew up just loving to do. It's something I've had a dream about doing since I was a kid. This is my plan, and it's going accordingly. You know, it's my dream, and I'm just grateful to be in this position. It's something I never take for granted because I know what it was like being a kid with no offers coming out of high school. And so every opportunity like this right now is a blessing to me. I can't believe it's happening. I'm so happy that I can be in this position. And so I take nothing for granted, and I really feel like working twice as hard as anybody else can gets me in this position I am today.
All right, I lied. I have one more for you. I really appreciate the insight on the motivation and why. But I'm interested to know, and when I talk to tight end prospects, I think it's interesting with the NFL, like the position is changing in a lot of ways. You're asking, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, three of the better tight ends in the NFL. They play outside receiver. They play in the slot. You have to do a lot of different things. In your opinion, how important is that versatility? How important is it to be an athlete, before and after the catch, be able to run from different alignments, pre-snap alignments, and those things? Is that where you also feel like the position specifically is going in the NFL?
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's like you said, the position has been changing in the last few years. It's something to where you got to have to be able to do everything. You know what I mean? If you want to be that type of guy, that's what I try to do. You want to be able to block, and while blocking, be able to beat a safety down the seam at the same time. And so it was really the way the position, when I came out of high school, it was starting to kind of be like that. Like everyone used to talk like that. But I wanted to make sure by the time, at least when I was planning to go to the NFL, that I was well-rounded in that sense and was ready to take that next step. Because I feel like it is important and really kind of you can be that kind of chess piece that a lot of people don't have. If you have that kind of versatility, we can line up anywhere on the field and be dangerous everywhere.
Couldn't agree more, man. I really appreciate the time, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you again.
Now joining 2-4 Drafts is former USC wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon, great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're out there living the dream in Southern California, or you're in Newport Beach right now. How's that treating you right now? How's the weather? How's the food? I need all of it.
It's nice, out here in Newport Beach. I'm from Orange County originally, so, about 15, 20 minutes away from Newport. Used to go here all the time when I was younger in the summer, go to the beach and whatnot. But I'm out here in an Airbnb with my two brothers. It's close to training for me.
Mm-hmm.
I live with my dad, do training at Stars with my other receiver coach. So it's nice to be local, and everything's 15, 20 minutes away. So it's nice to be here by the beach. I think it's, great vibes only.
How's it been hanging out with EQ and Osiris? What have you guys been up to?
We've been just chilling mainly during the week. Where me and EQ have been working out, doing a lot of training together. You get those trading cards and you got to sign a lot of things. So I've been pretty busy throughout the week with interviews with teams, signing the cards and working out. Other than that, on my free time, I usually just play video games. So that's usually what we do, on our off time.
Nice, man. What games do you guys play?
So right now, we've been playing Warzone earlier. So I would say like January, February, March, we were heavily on Warzone. And then recently I've been on FIFA. So playing FIFA Ultimate Team. If you guys need to smoke, hit my line.
That sounds great, man. I used to play a FIFA ton in college. I haven't gotten into Warzone. Who's the best Warzone player of the three brothers?
I would definitely say, probably EQ. He's been playing it longer. I haven't been playing too many shooter games my whole life. I'm usually into the sports games. So he's definitely more into the shooter. So I would say he's probably the better one.
Dude, I think I almost failed out of high school my junior year because I was playing so much Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That was like my first person shooter. I'm going to commit my entire life to getting a 2.5 KD or whatever it was. But that's funny, man. That's cool that you guys play. I know you guys are super competitive. It's a great transition to talk more about kind of your upbringing and stuff. For those who don't know, I think there's an HBO documentary. I don't know the name of it, but I watched it on you and your brothers and your family and just your dad, who's like an absolute animal in terms of like training you guys up. So when exactly did your dad put you guys in the weight room and put you guys on the field and try and start training you guys to be, kind of the monsters you guys are now?
Yeah, I was like 6 years old when I first started lifting. So, you do the math. My oldest brother is 3 years older than me. So he was probably eight years old. And Cyrus was 7. So we were young. He put us in the garage. We started off with PVC pipes just to get the form down. When you're so young, you just want to make sure you have the form. You can't really lift too much weight. So he made sure we had the form down with all the PVC pipes, bench press, squat, and whatnot. And then once he thought we were able to, put some weight on, we just added, 10 pounds on the side and started, pushing weight at a young age. And then ever since then, we've been heavy in the weight room with our dad. And then, he pushed us on the field with, whatever sport we were playing when we were younger until we got to high school. And then once we got to high school, we just focused on football.
Yeah, fair enough. And what other sports did you play as kids?
So I played football, basketball, and soccer. So we all three did. My mom's from Germany, so soccer is huge out in Germany. We used to go to Germany every year when we were younger in the summer. because that's where our grandparents live on my mom's side. So we'd go out there for about a month or two, me and my two brothers and my mom, while my dad would stay back home and take care of work. But we go out there, play soccer out there in Germany. It's, a lot of fun out there because that's like, the biggest sport out in Europe is soccer. So it was a fun time playing soccer. I still love soccer. I watch soccer today. So soccer and then basketball. I love playing basketball too. I hoop every Saturday out here in Newport, open runs out here in the park. So love hooping, but football, football was the sport for me.
Man, that's got to be insane. In addition, obviously, to your dad getting you the form in the weight room, that stuff so early, but how competitive that had to have been between three brothers just consistently competing at three different sports in the weight room, all that type of stuff. Had to have just groomed some absolute monsters for sure. I'd love to hear more. So I saw that thing about how your dad. You say you don't stretch because cheetahs don't stretch. Tell me, you guys stretch now, right? Come on, you guys definitely stretch now.
Yeah, I mean, I've never stretched too much in my life. If you ask, some of my teammates or even my best friends, they know I'm really tight. I can't really, I can't even touch my toes. So I've never stretched really growing up. Obviously, I warm up. I think warming up is different than stretching. Before I run, I'll jog, do my high knees and warm up my muscles. But stretching, I've never really, been a big stretcher. Like my dad said, you don't see cheetahs stretch before they run. So, I feel like all I need is a warm up and I'm good.
That's my favorite quote of all time from your dad right there. Cheetahs don't stretch. We don't either. That's freaking fantastic. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get back to your game a little bit. I'd love to hear kind of more about in a given game week at USC, what all went into a given game week in practice, specifically on film. What do you look for on film when you're preparing for a certain cornerback or a certain defense? What keys or tendencies do you look for in a given game week?
Yeah, so back at USC, they prepared us really well. So throughout the week, we'd watch tape on the whole defense as a whole. Our receiver coach, our offensive coordinator, they tell us, keys to look for, what kind of defense they run, what they like to run on third down or certain formations. So they, prepared us well. But for me on my own, what I like to look at was just tendencies of the guys that I was going up against. So if I was going up against, a bigger corner, watching his tape and watching other guys go against him and what he struggles with and what he's good at. And just once I get in the game, I know, if I'm off of tape, his tendencies and what I can do to him to try to beat him.
And how has that film preparation changed in the offseason? Have you had a lot of opportunity in between FIFA games, of course, to watch some film on yourself or watch film on NFL guys?
Yeah, so I always watch film myself or even NFL guys. So I think it's awesome today with social media, guys post up and you go. And for me, I have Instagram, I have Twitter. And then whenever I see any route running or things that I can, add to my game, whether it's, drills or footwork drills, I always save it and make sure, I have it on my phone so I can always look back in it and try to, implement those drills into my routine or to my practice. So I love that we have social media nowadays because you can just, go on your phone and see all different types of guys. So obviously, I watch NFL football, watch tape, always watch myself because that's how you get better is watching yourself and correcting yourself. But, I love watching other guys and trying to, copy them.
Are there any guys in the NFL specifically that you watch a ton of that you try to pattern your game after?
Yeah, there's a few guys that I definitely love watching. So Steve Smith is the guy that I kind of, see myself as, he's retired now, but back when he played, I watch his documentary and everything, and I kind of see myself in him. But receivers that I like watching now, obviously, I have one brother that plays for the Packers. So Devontae Adams is a guy I love watching. I watch a lot of Packer games. Stephon Diggs on the Bills. I think he's awesome. Keenan Allen on the Chargers. Those are three guys right there that I just love watching, because of how they do things. They're not the fastest. They're not the strongest. They're not the quickest, but they always seem to find a way to get open. So.
Yeah, those are some great names, man. Steve Smith's one of the first guys when I was a kid growing up like that. I was like, man, this is why I love football. Steve Smith's tape is just incredible. And I've had opportunities to meet with him at the combine. He's obviously in media now, and he's just an absolute dog in media too. He's one of the best analysts out there. So entertaining and all those different things. Speaking of Steve Smith's good transition. I'd love to hear your take on talking trash in games, because I do think with the receiver position and quarterback, even pass rusher, offensive tackle, there's opportunities to talk trash in game because you see the same players over and over. You're able to kind of build some rapport and work off things, play that mental side of the game. What's your approach to that side of it?
Yeah, so, I'll talk trash every now and then. If a corner is talking trash to me, I definitely talk back. But my whole thing is, I'll talk trash if I want to, if I make a great play or, if it's the right time. But I'm not just going to talk trash because I feel like as a receiver, you don't want to make a DB mad. Because, anyone that's playing mad is always going to play better. So, obviously some DBs, they might get out of their comfort zone and play worse or out of their character when they're mad. But most players, when they do get mad or are irritated, they play a bit better. So my whole thing is I don't want you to, play better than you usually are. So I'm not going to trash talk if I don't have to. But if I make a good play or if he's trash talking, I'm definitely going to trash talk back. So it really depends on the situation.
I'd be interested on your take on who some of the best corners you've gone against in your career at USC in the Pac-12. I know Oregon has a couple of dogs. Washington always turns out a ton of talent. Jalen Johnson, Utah. I'd be interested to know who you felt were some of the best cornerbacks you've gone against.
Yeah, there's a lot of great corners in the Pac-12. Last year, we had a shortened season, so the Diamador Lenore from Oregon, my sophomore year, Javon Holland from Oregon was good, very, very smart. Jack Jones from ASU, very instinctive. Love going up against him. Cameron Bynum from Cal, I think he's very smart, big body. So those are some guys I felt like, we're definitely one of the better corners in the pack.
Javon Holland went to Bishop O'Dowd, also an Oakland native, has to represent, my friend. That's my guy. Also, he could play anything. He could play outside corner, slot, safety. I'm a big fan of Javon Holland. Some other stuff I like to finish with this, man. This has been great, and I really appreciate the time. Something I ask a lot of prospects is what your motivation is or your why is to continue to kind of make the sacrifices you do and play this game. And you've been making these sacrifices since you were 6 years old, man. You've been in the weight room with your dad for so long, pursuing a career in the NFL, pursuing a career in sports. What is that motivation for you as you kind of continue to go to the next level?
I think there's a lot of motivations for me. Some of them, being, I hate losing. So just my competitive side that we, talked about earlier, growing up with two older brothers. I hated losing as a young kid because I always had two older brothers that were beating me in most things because they're just stronger than me and faster and smarter just because they're older. So for me, I hate losing and I love competing. I compete in everything that I do in life and the things that I love doing. So, I love playing football. So my whole thing is just going out there and winning in everything that I do, wanting to be the best at anything that I do. So, if I'm playing football, I want to be the best at what I do. So that's something that I take very serious. And making my dad proud is another thing. He's the person I look up to. I admire him the most. And, he's the reason why I'm where I am today. And for me, going out there, playing well, making him happy, making my family happy is something that, brings motivation to me.
Fantastic stuff, man. I had one more for you. I just remembered. I'd love to get a scouting report from you on Keaton Slovis, guy that's going to be a big name coming into the 2022 NFL draft, obviously the USC quarterback. Yeah,
I think Keaton's awesome. You look at the tape, he can make any throw on the field. I think his deep ball is exceptional, one of the best deep balls I've ever caught or even seen. He has great air on it. Accuracy is amazing. I think his pocket presence is great. I think he's an awesome quarterback. Like I said, he can make every throw on the field. He's accurate. He's smart. And he's becoming a leader, I think, more and more every year, which is, huge as a quarterback. So I think he's going to do awesome next year.
Really appreciate the time, man. If I ever pick up the sticks looking to play some FIFA, I'll let you know. I'll get you out. We'll get a game here going here pretty soon. But like I said, best of luck moving forward, man.
You better practice first.
I bet I will. I'm going to have to. Do you play Madden? I'd be down to play Madden. On my Madden game.
I play a little Madden. I play a little, yeah.
I could be down for some Madden. All right, I'll hit you up. We'll see if we can get a game going here soon.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
It is wild to me. Tommy Tremble, one, super smart guy. I love, how much he wants to have a versatile role in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I brought up he doesn't, your dad says you don't stretch because Cheetos don't stretch as a joke. And I was like, you stretch though, right? He's like, no, not really. He can't even touch his toes. That's crazy to me. I feel like, don't you want some of that flexibility? Can't even touch your toes?
You 100% do. That matters a lot.
I thought, I don't know. I was interested by that answer. I was surprised. I was like, no, we stretch. We didn't as a kid. But he was like, no, not really. Can't even touch my toes. It's like, holy shit.
Also, isn't a lot of that arm length too? Like, I'm not very flexible,
so.
but I can touch my toes because I got
pure
long
toe
arms.
touching helps a lot with arm length, yeah. But it's also like you should
flexibility
stretch, yeah. Like his brother's fucking stiff as a board as well.
Easy. All right, let's go ahead now.
His brother.
Let's close it up here. This has been a fantastic episode. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Continue to support us. Also want to shout out at the back end of the podcast here, producer David Safaro. Mentioned him at the back end all the time. All these interviews that we did have on 2-for-1 drafts don't happen without Dave Safaro. He's been working the phones, making plays, trying to get these guys on here. And he's been a huge help in getting other guests on as well. Peter Schrager, Todd McShay, among others. Danny Kelly, all these guys that come on the podcast. Dave does a really, really good job. Big shout out to our producer who's never on the mic, silent assassin, Dave Safaro. Also, big shout out to producer Mike Quinn, who's been helping us do 4 episodes a week. We're getting closer to draft season, man. It's coming to a close. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really appreciate everybody on this team. 2-for-1 drafts, baby. To the moon. Austin Gayle, producer Mike Quinn, producer David Safaro, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 drafts.